Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Jessica Devereaux in Baltimore. On November 5th, voters from the Seattle suburb of SeaTac passed Proposition 1, which calls for a $15 an hour minimum wage for airport, hotel, and restaurant workers. That is the highest minimum wage in the U.S. Joining us now is David Rolfe. David is the SEIU International Vice President and organized support for the passage of Proposition 1. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
So, David, can you just give us sort of the backstory? How did this come to be? How were you guys able to organize getting this such a high minimum wage in SeaTac?
Well, let's talk about the SeaTac economy for a second. These airport jobs like baggage handlers, ramp workers, jet fuelers, concessionaires, these are jobs that paid $16, $18 an hour back in the 1970s and the 1980s. They used to be living wage jobs. Even our local Congressman, Adam Smith, recalls growing up in the home. His father was a baggage handler and was able to support a family and buy a home on a baggage handler's salary. That's all changed. The major airlines outsourced those jobs and turned them into minimum wage jobs, which impoverished a whole community. So SeaTac saw its grocery store become a Goodwill and its video store become a pawn shop because the impoverishment of those jobs hurt the whole community. So when voters had a chance to qualify a ballot initiative and raise wages back up a little closer to where they were 20 or 30 years ago, ultimately they said yes. And they gathered enough signatures to qualify Proposition 1 for the ballot. And then in the early returns, they seemed to be passing Proposition 1 by about an 8-point margin. It was really their opportunities to say to CEOs and to Congress that they're impatient with waiting for them to do the right thing for American workers. And it's time we took matters into our own hands.
And let's get a sense of the impact of this vote. How many workers will actually be affected?
There are about 6,000 workers, a little more than 6,000 workers who work at the airport and airport-related businesses like rental car companies, parking lots, and at the hospitality zone adjacent to the airport with the major hotels. About 6,000 who work for about 70 different businesses.
And do you think this vote in SeaTac will sort of increase the momentum elsewhere?
Well, I think for sure it will. Ultimately, what votes like this are about is whether the entire economy thrives and prospers or only the richest 1%. When you look at what's happened over the last 30 years, CEO pay has gone up 725% in this country. 80% of all the economic gains have gone to the top 1% of income earners, and the bottom 90% have seen wages stagnate and real spending power decline vis-a-vis inflation. So the kind of mass impoverishment of wage work that we've seen all around the country, I think is going to create many more situations that are ripe for this kind of campaign, where voters are going to lose patience with CEOs, bankers, Wall Street, and politicians, and say it's time that we do this ourselves. And I would expect that this may have been the first nationally significant campaign like this, but I really doubt it's going to be the last.
Well, David, congratulations on your victory, and thank you for joining us.
All right.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.